The 12 Days of DCIM. We'll get started here. My name is Jason. I'm the bottom guy there, and Fred's at the top. I'm a basically sales engineer here at NetTerrain, Graphical Networks. Sorry, NetTerrain's our product. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Fred, if you don't hear me, let me know. Well, I guess you wouldn't be able to let me know. Or if I don't sound very good, let me know. So Fred's a sales guy at Graphical Networks, and I do sort of pre and post sales, and usually do the webinars and things like that. So anyway, sort of moving on. What was this about? Well, we're just having a little fun, obviously, at 12 Days of Christmas and doing the 12 Days of DCIM. So if you have a question, by the way, in Zoom, in the bottom right there, there's a raise hand option, right? And so you can press that and post a question. So if you have a question, just post it. I'll probably get to it at the end. We're scheduled for 30 minutes. I don't know if it'll go that long, but I'll show you a few things in our product, NetTerrain, and hopefully answer questions. And if anything comes up, just let me know, obviously. So, all right, the structure webcast. Usually we do a polling question. So if I have a polling question in here, I'll post that here in just a second, in fact. And then we'll work on some slides, and then I'll actually just get into the NetTerrain software. I may switch back and forth based on this one. So let me see if I have a polling question here today. Let me launch the poll. So this is how are you currently documenting your data center? So this is obviously geared sort of towards the data center. So let me hit the button here, give you guys a minute to see. So we got Visio is usually a big one. Spreadsheets is a big one. Combination of both. I might have a DCIM in place. No documentation or other, whatever other is. So give you guys a minute to kind of see. So it looks like Visio and Spreadsheets is the winner, and then, of course, Spreadsheets. No one's just solely doing Visio, looks like. So DCIM in place, no documentation was the bottom. So at least you guys are documenting. That's always a good thing. So I'll close that out. All right, so moving on. Let me page down here. I'm sorry, I'm not a guru of PowerPoint by any stretch of the imagination. So, all right, on the first day, my boss gave to me a network without documentation and a whole lot of worry. It semi-rhymes, so that's good. So looks like most of you guys have some form of documentation, which is great. Not having documentation, that's a little tough when you're talking data centers or networks in general. So that's kind of troublesome, or it can be. Not for everybody, you know, some people, depending on the size of the network and who you have working there, I guess, you can get away with that documentation. I, for one, would think it'd be a little difficult. But when I think in terms of network documentation, I'm not just talking about how things are necessarily connected together, but I like to think in terms of physical location, data points about equipment, maybe it was in service, maybe information about warranties, things like that. But also, like in our internal documentation, I track a lot of information that are related to the network, like vendors, you know, who's providing who's my ISP, how do I get in touch with them to track, and really just any kind of vendor I have, I track in my particular documentation tool. So it's not just, when I think in terms of network documentation, not just a flat Visio drawing necessarily. I'm not knocking Visio, it's perfectly good product, but with respect to network documentation, it's nice to have some options there, sort of build a hierarchy. And I'm going to switch gears down to just our product. So our product is NetTerrain, and this is the product. This is our demo server. You guys could actually access if you wanted to poke around in it. You can get to it. Basically, this URL. And if you get there, you get read-only access so you can navigate. But you know, it's a hierarchy of information, so you can sort of drill your way down into more and more data and more detail. You don't have to necessarily do that. That's really kind of up to you. but you can if you want to. So the hierarchy is pretty broad there, and you kind of do what you want there. So that's always a good thing. Back to my PowerPoint. Second day, my boss gave to me NetTerrain DCIM, finally. Well, that's NetTerrain. That's our product. Of course, it doesn't have to be necessarily our product. We'd like it to be our product in your environment, but just in general terms, there's a lot of DCIM tools out there. Certainly, you want to do your due diligence, and if you are looking for a tool, review what's out there and decide what's the most appropriate, best fit in different aspects, features, functionality, cost, etc. So we have a product, NetTerrain DCIM. That's what I was just showing, basically. And again, you want to see what's out there and what's the right fit. So on the third day, I set up NetTerrain with locations in a nice hierarchy, so we can know exactly where equipment is stationed. That's where we get into physical hierarchy. So that's basically our tool. Sorry, I better close my email, or you're going to get a lot of pings here. So you have hierarchy where you can navigate and sort of drill down into different levels and layers. You don't have to. We don't have a fixed hierarchy per se. There's nothing that says, hey, I have to start here and work my way down. It's actually up to you in the catalog, and that you decide on. So you can get down to a lot of detail, but you don't have to. That's what that's really in reference to, this number 3 here. So like locations, hierarchy, where's the equipment? So one of the nice things we get feedback about is being able to search and find equipment quickly, like support type folks, and being able to get to information. That's actually my list here too. But with that said, let's move on to day 4. Imported my current data that was in a spreadsheet into NetTerrain, saving me time and effort, and it's pretty neat. I'm a big fan, of course, using data that I have, if possible. Of course, good data, right? In this particular case, it's in reference to something like an Excel import, where you're doing more of a CSV or bulk type import. So we have Excel import. You can do a single import, or you can multiple upload different spreadsheets. I have customers that engineers in the field, they'll use the spreadsheet that they have. It's formatted so it represents our format, and so while they're out in the field, they'll just put information into that, and then they'll pass that back, and then these files get queued up, and then they usually get ingested in the evening. Or you could do an individual Excel import. What's Excel import do for you? It does just that. It builds a hierarchy so you can see from top down the hierarchy, physical locations, all that good stuff, but also connections, connectivity. Really, everything you see that I'm showing you in the hierarchy and the connections and so on, that can all be done with an Excel import. And Excel can either be a one-time bulk import type process, or you might use it as a means of updating on a regular basis. You can do effectively both with NetTerrain. So Excel import, I'm a big fan of. Partly because everybody knows Excel. I mean, with the poll, people were using a combination of Visio and spreadsheets. Well, it's spreadsheets because people know spreadsheets, right? So, you know, why not keep it simple? On the 5th day, I connected it to my SolarWinds and asset management system to help automate DCIM. So this is really about, again, using data that you have. So not just a CSV, but if you have a monitoring tool like SolarWinds, or you have some asset management system like an HP system or whatever it happens to be, we do allow you to, and I don't know if I have it up, oh yeah, here it is. Sorry, my collector here. So we have this tool called the collector, and it has connectors, and these connectors interface with these different systems, anything from doing your own SMP discovery to connecting to something like AWS or Azure or SolarWinds or ServiceNow or Spectrum, etc. And we can add more connectors depending on the systems you use. Most of our connectors are taking advantage of other systems' APIs. APIs are the way of the world, that programming interface that allows you to talk to other systems, bring data from other systems, etc. It's really quite handy nowadays. So that's what we're really doing here. So it depends on the system, what you want to connect to. So something like SolarWinds, I have a lot of customers that, of course, they're doing discovery with SolarWinds, getting updates and information. So they'll use our connector to bring those devices over into NetTerrain so they can visualize it, place it where it is location-wise, build that hierarchy, and start to build the physical connections. In some cases, you'll get those connections depending on the SolarWinds that you have. But AWS, I use that a bit myself here because I have an AWS infrastructure, so I'll discover EC2 instances, firewalls, how they're all related to each other's and each other, and so on. And that comes across through the collector, and then it gets pushed into NetTerrain, and so on. So, number 6, day 6, I added port level cabling, so I can see all the devices and how they're connected together. So, for instance, you kind of saw a little bit of that here in this device where you see connections, and that can be data connection, or it could be even a power connection, which is what is represented down here, and there's a connection. And what is that connection? That connection is basically a connection, in this case, from device port to a port on like a patch panel, right? And then I can run what's called the CLR to visualize the path of what that might look like. So it gives me end-to-end view, so not just here's the first hop, but show me all the way down the path if it's physically connected, what it looks like. And that's what this is, and we'll get into a lot of detail versus physical hierarchy of all the ports in this case. So moving on to the next polling question. Let me see if I can bring that up. Poll. Let's see. Number 2. Here we go. Launch poll. So this one is, what pain points do you need to solve? So we talk a lot about pain points, right? I mean, if you're out looking for a tool, you have to have some sort of pain. How bad is the pain depends, will sort of dictate how quickly you get a solution, what the solution is. If there's a project dedicated to the project as well. So things like space and capacity, these are the ones that we hear from customers. Space, capacity, power, cost, cabling, headaches, and compliance, right? We're seeing more and more compliance. I have a blog coming out talking about compliance soon. Just about all these different compliance options that are out there and things to think about with compliance. So all these have, it looks like it's pretty well split, but cabling and compliance seem to be the big two, but certainly space and power come into play as well. So thank you for that. Well, cabling, when we're talking about cabling, for our tool, you saw how you can show connections and cabling. We can talk more about, get into more detail for you. So cabling could be physical port-to-port connections, but also things like strands for that are part of a larger cable. So individual fiber that's part of the big fiber cable or trunk, those types of things. So space capacity, I mean, these are all things that you will see in the tool. So for instance, good old PowerPoint, there we go. So let me go back here. Let me just go up to one of the racks. So that was sort of cabling and how you can see and manage your cable connections. If you click on a cabinet, that's what this is. This represents a cabinet, like, well, it's a red rectangle. Yeah, but on the left-hand side, it tells you about power consumption, weight, etc. And those can be automatically calculated based on the equipment that's rack-mounted, that's manufacturer spec power that you can also change. You could feed this data from a system, so if you have a power monitoring system, you could get updates to that power information and then roll that up and get more real-time accurate power readings as well. That's kind of up to you. You can run reports, inter-cable reports, intra-cable reports, so reports that show you connectivity in the cabinet and outside the cabinet, and various other things too. So on the 7th day, I gave read-only access to my help desk users so they could search the network and troubleshoot. So, if you have a tool with a lot of data in it, you want to be able to share that information. Some of the information you want to make it read-only. where people get to it through just a read-only account, like support desks. So it's pretty common there. Usually your engineers are going to be things like editors where they can actually make updates possibly. We have admins, power users. We have different levels of security that you can get into, but read-only is certainly something a lot of customers use. On the 8th day, we get into deploy NetTerrain's real-time power and temperature monitoring software. So that's something, if you really got to get into detailed power monitoring, I want to see power every 3 or 4 or 5 seconds and get that updated and see that in a graph and a chart, and over time. There's an add-on for our product that allows you to do that. It's the real-time power monitoring. So it's a nice thing to have if you really need it. If you don't need it, then it's kind of time for use. If you want to get more details about that or see that in a little more detail, just reach out to us. I'm happy to show that. It also lets you even control power. If you're using IPMI, it's a protocol that's been around a long time. Usually your servers respond to IPMI. You can turn on servers and power them down, limit power, and things like that. It's pretty nice. Number 9 is reporting. So on the 9th day, I started checking out all the reports so I can know what's on my network and has left in the tank. My boss said thanks. Yes, bosses usually love reports so they can see kind of what's going on at a high level. So we have different reporting options in NetTerrain. Anything from a report that you press a button and you'll see sort of a dashboard of reports where you can then go and pick different report types and so on that you might want to run. So racks and assets and various other things. And these reports you can generate yourself with our dashboard reporting tool. It's part of the software when you purchase it, if you're hosting it online yourself or in your own environment, I should say. We do offer a SaaS option, so you're a little more limited in SaaS, but not totally. It just depends on what you're trying to do. But you can host it yourself as well. But you have a lot of different reporting options in NetTerrain. That we always tell you, I mean, the data is in the database. It's your data. You do what you want with it as far as reports. A lot of built-in reports. We'll create reports for you too if they're sort of what we consider sort of table-type reports, ones that are pretty straightforward. We also have in NetTerrain, we have a query builder you can use to generate reports, so not just dashboard. Oh, not sure what I just did there. Let me try that again. Uh-oh. I think my license ran out. I don't know what I did. But I'll get back to that in a second. So you have this query builder. You can run your own queries and so on, and you can generate reports as well. So moving on. So that's reporting. We also, I'll mention this too, a lot of people don't realize this, even customers a long time, is we have these, we have a lot of documentation on our software. And I'm going to say this because I think it's important, and I'm proud of our documentation from the standpoint of there's not just a lot of it, but it's good. It can really guide you in what you need to do day to day. We have power user guide. We have user guide. We have guides for admins, install guides, API guides, the database guide. So it describes the database, where is data stored, and so on. It's a lot of guides. I mean, the user guide itself is like 400 or 500 pages. So, nowadays you don't really see guides anymore. It's a lot of just, well, here's some online help and that kind of stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but when you're looking at tools, you want to take it as a whole. Support. What kind of guides do you have? What access information do you have to the tool? Is it all open for yourselves? Anyway, stop rambling on about that. On the 10th day, I set up work orders and assigned networking tasks to my team. It works like a dream. So work orders it's kind of tasks for us. So you can assign to a user a task. I want you to do this. I want you to install this this server, and you assign it to somebody. And then when they log in, they'll get a notification that basically says, hey, here's your list of tasks that you need to get on. And here's the, things that kind of thing. And then as a user, I can go in and say, oh, let me complete these tasks, right? So it allows you to do that. So it's great. Now, if you already have, a lot of people already have work order management type systems, which is fine. Of course, you probably stick with those. But if you don't have something and and it's helpful in your day-to-day, we do have a work order piece built in. So on the 11th day, I actually kind of showed you this already. That was the tracing of an IT outage. That was sort of going end-to-end path where you could actually see starting point. So you can imagine you're in a data center, you're staring at a port, there's a cable coming out of it, and you're like, okay, well, where does this go? You know, that first hop might be easily traced because it's to a patch panel in the same rack. But from there, it gets a little more complicated if it's not documented. So that's where you get into, hey, let me document and sort of show that full path. So if you've documented that. Now, that can be tedious, too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you don't have documentation on your connections, you know, going in and doing an audit can be very time-consuming. So you want to, if you're going down that path, it's one of those things I think you build up over time. So if you have a good process in place that says, hey, let me have a process where I go out and I do get data, let me put it into the tool, so in X time I'll at least start to have it built up over time, right? And then on the 12th day, I went home on time because I'm managing the network and not letting it manage me, and I'm out of rhymes. I'm not sure they all rhymed anyway, but you get the point. I mean, part of the reason you document your network is things like compliance, answer questions about the network, help you support the network, troubleshoot the network, et cetera, make decisions about the network, which is very hard without documentation, and so on. So if you have these things, hopefully it's helping you to manage the network better, and you're not constantly fighting fires, and you can get home on time. So that's sort of the whole point. So I already showed you NetTerrain in action. You don't necessarily need to see it again. But I will say, if you want to see NetTerrain, there's a couple options. One, of course, you can reach out to us. We can do a fuller demo for you, answer more questions. You can go to NetTerrain.com and sign up. There's a 14-day trial. It's all just web-based, which our tool's web-based anyway. So you see all the features. You can play around, kick the tires, so to speak, and so on. So you can do that as well, NetTerrain.com. And you know, if you have questions, just reach out to Fred or myself, and hopefully we can help you out there. See if there's any questions. You can reach out to Fred. That's his email there. So you can do sales at Graphical Networks or just call him. We've got some Q&A here. Let me stop my share and just see if there's questions. So the first one, this is always the big question, right? How is NetTerrain priced? Well, NetTerrain is really priced basically per object. But when I say object, there are different sort of pricing things out there when people talk about objects. Some companies price an object as really anything, a port, a line, etc. For us, it's really about, for the most part, about objects like a chassis. That would be an object. It's not the cards, it's not the ports, it's not even the cables. It's really just the box. So if you were to look at a cabinet and you go, well, the cabinet's one object, and then whatever's rack mounted in it, so maybe there's 15 things in it. Well, you got 16 license count there. So that's kind of it. So it's not hard. You know, of course you have to come up with some sort of, you know, number for us so we can price it out. But we start, I think, at 250 objects, 500. I don't know. It's I think pretty competitively priced for what you're getting and what you're doing. So you reach out to us. Fred will give you the pricing, whatever you want, and let you know. SNMP Discovery Extra, it doesn't cost extra. We have that collector thing that I mentioned or alluded to earlier. That is, it's there to use, so it's not, we don't really charge you extra for it. You download it off your server and install it, and then you can set it up to do SNMP Discovery or connect it to your SolarWinds or whatever and push data. So anyway, if if you guys have more questions, let us know. We're happy to help you guys out. And, NetTerrain on-premise requirements. We have a requirements doc. It's really not much. If you have a small instance of NetTerrain, you can get away with, single VM, not very large, really, setup-wise. Unless you already have a database environment you can put us into, a SQL Server environment. So really, you do need Windows, though. We're Windows software, so it's got to be on a Windows server. So sorry for you purist Linux folks, I can't help you. But you can run, technically, NetTerrain through a browser on Linux, Chrome or whatever, but the software itself you need to host in a Windows environment. So anyway, let's see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a day here. I'll give you another second here to pop up, and then we'll see. Nothing else. I think that's it. So, all right, thanks everybody for attending. Oh wait, how often is your catalog updated? So the catalog is interesting. We actually update it on a regular basis, but we don't necessarily push that out to you because we find most customers don't want to get every device just because we create it, because a lot of people might not be a Cisco shop. So do you really care about getting all the Cisco stuff? So you can, as things from us, when you're under maintenance, we'll send them to you, create them, send them. You can create your own stuff too. You don't need us to create things for you. So that's totally up to you. If you want to create your own things, you can do it on our tool. We don't lock you out of doing that. It's actually pretty easy to do. So for cabling, can you show fiber strands? Another question. Yeah, you can. You can create a cable type. It can be X number of fiber in the cable. You can show the strands, show what each strand connects to, and so on. So yeah, it works actually quite well, in fact. So yeah, if you, like I said, if you want to see sort of more fuller demo, you can certainly give us a shout and we can help you out there, or you can just go to NetTerrain.com. You can play around with it yourself, so on. Let me see if there's other questions. Cabling. Hire consultants if you bought our software. I guess if you want to, but no. Our software is not like installing something like SAP where you gotta hire 5 people to come in full time for 6 months. You can get our software running in probably an hour if you follow the documentation and so on, or we can help you install it, or you can go to NetTerrain.com and just sign up, and you're running. Nothing to really do there, so it works pretty well. It's pretty easy to set up. I mean, if you want help migrating data and other things, we have services for that. We do professional service work for that, so we can help you with those things. But certainly you don't have to do that. That's up to you. We offer training classes and things like that too. So, anyway, any other questions? I don't think so. All right, well, we're over time, so I'm going to call it. Have a great holiday, and thank you for attending, and look forward to seeing you guys in the new year. Take care.